Hello and welcome or welcome back to my channel. My name is David Novak. As I record this, it is a Tuesday, and I do not know if I will post it on a Thursday for Poetry Thursday or rush it out on Wednesday as an early Poetry Thursday video, but this is intending to become a poetry reading video. I had done a video some time ago that somehow touched on poetry, as I recall, and Ruben at the channel Two Readers It May Concern left some kind of comment saying, well, why don't you do some more poetry videos? I don't remember exactly what the video was or what the comment was. Well, that's a dangerous thing to say to a writer of poetry. Now, I am no longer a writer of poetry. For the most part, I'm going to contradict myself in a second here. I spent the majority of my life writing poetry, and then I published some books around the turn of the century. I had 5 books published by Non-Fit Press, a self-pub job before it became so easy. So there's Non-Fit Press, and I would go to book fairs and poetry festivals, that kind of thing. And so it has been over 20 years since I've done any poetry readings, that kind of thing. And I thought I would like to do something of that today. Recently, I've done a couple of videos. One was called The Fireside Chat, and then I did one just a couple of days ago also, wherein I talked about politics a little bit. And I thought that I would talk a little bit about poetry in regards to politics, read some poems. I have not ever done a real poetry reading for this channel, so it may go on a little bit. Years ago, when I was doing those poetry readings, one thing that I learned, now a poetry reader is allowed to have some water, or in this case, tea. Gurgle, gurgle, slosh, slosh. There went my concentration. I read a poem in here which I had composed during the presidency of George H.W. Bush, which dealt with Bush smear. It dealt with the propensity of the Bush administration to engage in slander, besmirching its opponents, that sort of thing, which became standard Republican practice after that time. Famously, Anita Hill was besmirched by the Bush machine, and I wrote a poem about it. And I thought that I should do some poetry reading and try to a degree to focus on poems that deal with politics a little bit. It has never been a main focus of mine, but I on one of those videos where I talked about politics, a viewer commented something, words to the effect, if you stare at the abyss, the abyss may stare back at you, or something like that. It's a quote by Nietzsche, the philosopher. And I don't take advice from nut jobs, but I have thought about that quote, and I realize that my viewer probably thinks that I am much more invested in the political contest of today than I am. I had watched a live stream by booktuber Steve Donahue where he seems unsure how to deal with his channel. Should he just do light and diversionary videos about books? How can you do something like that when this huge political crisis is going on? It's a perennial question. Richard Feynman wondered how you could party and have fun and enjoy yourself when far off around the world people were struggling and dying in Hiroshima after the atomic bomb had dropped. He talked about that. In my case, it's a little bit different to Steve's situation because I came onto the scene. I probably should try to sit up so that my big belly doesn't look bigger than it is. Wrote poetry here and there, and had my say, as I said. And in certain instances, I touched upon political topics, and in others I did not. Well, let me read you something from this first book that is not political at all. It is titled Three Things. That every shut eye ain't asleep, nor every goodbye gone, nor womankind the dim naive her cozenage lets on, is purview of the parvenu, pronounced profoundest wisdom, to which mankind, politely may not listen. I'm not sure if there's anything much in here that was political beyond that bush smear poem. Well, there was a poem titled 1992, and it responded to global events of the day. O Lord, thy most exalted prize, submissive womanhood, now cries in Bosnia, yet none replies. Can Church of Christ Celestial, benumbed, succumb to bestial, barbaric force terrestrial? Masada falls, and yet remains. The Christ is beaten, yet he reigns. Muhammad's daughters bear their pains. So, only very cursorily touching upon politics. I mentioned that I had done a chapbook. Initially, I wrote a poem for the inaugural of President Barack Obama, which prompted me to produce a small chapbook. As an appendix, I included a poem which I had written for the inaugural of Bill Clinton, the second inaugural. And then it went through different versions. I think I added more poems. And when Trump was elected president, I wrote a poem for him. In fact, let me read that one. I have to say that I don't go back and read my own poetry. So in the case of any of these things that I'm reading, I'm not very familiar with it, but I tend generally to remember a little bit. And like whenever I produced the chapbook, of course, I had to read the poem at this time. So this is titled Indifference, an inaugural poem. Nature and nature's God persist imperiled because of human plunder's tampering, an end foreseen for much of the known world, while men, once wise, would make a knave a king. However did such an amoral fool attain his nation's highest office now? By lies and falsehood, men deserve misrule, whom forked tongue flatteries gull anyhow. Yet many, numberless, who will be hurt, wanted no part of this pernicious realm. Yet far too long did human eyes avert from lust and greed that now must overwhelm. The die is cast. Let man become extinct, if a just recompense for that white greed that has reduced a world, severely brinked through excess far surpassing any need. Had any man the might to turn back time, how I would pray that we not reach this pass. Yet men too long persisted in their crime, indifference, so come what must come, and has. So the indifference, it's been striking in this careening downward of our political system that has progressed since the presidency of, well, let's say even since Nixon, but really gaining force with the illegitimate ouster, so to speak, of President Carter by Ronald Reagan, who made a deal with hostage takers to make Carter look bad. And things have just gone from bad to worse since then. But you look at some of these close decisions, the one between Al Gore and George W. Bush. If the race had not been so tight, the Supreme Court would not have been in a position to turn the election in the favor of George W. Bush. The reason of the election being so close is a cause for dismay, or was in its day. Now I think I understand it a lot more. I often have to argue with myself, should I vote or not? And then, you realize the media has a large part to play in this. I remember during that election, all of the media said, if Al Gore wants to have a chance, he has to disassociate himself from Bill Clinton, which he did. Not right now, the media is all unanimous in its voice. If the Democrats want to have a chance, Biden must bow out of the race. Whatever. As I say, I have no pony in the race at this point, save to the extent, 8 years ago when Donald Trump came into office, his mishandling of the COVID crisis had a huge impact upon the way that epidemic spread in this country. Had Barack Obama or some of the systems that Obama had put in place been in place, things would obviously have gone differently. Well, I did a poem. You can barely see this, Quarantine Boutique. I couldn't come up with a letter. These are at my Lulu site, and I'll put a link in the thing, in the description box. A couple of these talk about politics, and I'll do one that deals with, it's called The Three Fingers of Donald Trump. The Three Fingers of Donald Trump. I'll try to get the meter right here, but it's been a while. Which I wish to remark, and my meaning is plain, though my failure is stark, dereliction my stain, The COVID-19 is peculiar, which the same I would rise to explain. Though the scientists said it was coming, I scoffed. There's no reason to dread, I repeated full oft. We will lick it as easy as pussy. And then into my fingers I coughed. Oh, the COVID-19, I declared by and by, is like a flu you've seen, so nobody will die. And I know what I mean like an expert, whose third cousin might well be Bill Nye. If today, per my count, 15 cases exist, in 2 days the amount will be none, I insist. So I spake to the unwashed and heathen, and I'm sure they deciphered my gist. I was offered a gift of free kits to do tests, but because I love grift, I demurred, and the rest's a debacle beyond understanding, exponential the growth which infests. It's the Democrats' hoax was my opening lie, but it seems like the jokes turned on me, the fall guy, and the pandemic team which I disbanded has got me looking like no Bill Nye. But myself I absolve with my painted suntan, so the blame must devolve on some other. My plan to deflect from my guilt by admission, by impugning Ching Chong Chinaman, to exacerbate hate, but be sly cowardly, so I'll insinuate it's a virus Chinese, and nobody will see while I'm pointing the 3 fingers that point back at me. So, you know, the candidate Trump has picked a guy, J.D. Vance, I think, as his running mate, who had terrible things to say about Trump previously. And part of the fascist mechanism or machine is to have everybody forget the past. I came on the scene as a poet, and part of a poet's function is to drive down pylons of memory. And so it is all forgotten nowadays that the Republicans, for the first number of years, said that the pandemic, that COVID-19 was a hoax. It was something that the Democrats had made up, just as they had made up climate change. Well, the fascist machine wants you to forget, but poetry requires that you remember. Now, that is why I say I have no pony in this race. I came and I did my duty as a poet. And so beyond that, I have no more to say. I don't expect to write any more poetry, particularly. The muse does hit me once in a while. Let me show, well, you know, when I did my long question and answer thing, I did a couple of poems which were the ones where I achieved my mature style. The first ones where I had done so. If you want any of these non-fit press books, you have to go to Amazon or to one of the used book sellers. And I'll read those again. There's no harm in reading, hearing a poem again. These are 2 short poems. The first 2 poems where I achieved my mature style. There's nothing political here. Shall I, impure curator, to ignominy beyond compare, with new romantic antics woo my disenchanted lady's care? No, no, nor will she be consoled. Her hot disapprobation told my conscience might be calmed or killed, which words unheard beget despair. Bah, Pride abed with lowliness has fertilized this thorny glen, where deprivation in excess feeds steadlier than regimen. The truest loves may yet show false, self-abnegating cannibals at fasts revealed as festivals of farce, the curse on mortal men. And then that was followed up by another, where I put into practice what I had learned in that previous poem. Pegged to the mercy tree since then, that day thy spear first pierced me, love. Many a year thus has it been, but thou hast not released me, love. Though I was but a child most shy, before thy brilliant ecstasy, I took the blow whereon did die, for I the mortal part of me. But this remains a fetid shrine to hopes that have no hope to be. The dregs of dregs, and all are mine, and this is what I owe to thee. Forever then be grateful friends, and foes repent your fondest folly. The longest pleasure swiftly ends, and so this song, but not my story. So I reread those because recently I wrote a new poem in that style. I think I write about 2 poems per year now. And it was the first sort of genuine poem without any external impetus, any external, particularly political impetus driving it. So it's very similar in style and even some of the phrasing. If I might worship at the shrine of beauty so unparalleled as that which I perceive as thine, my passion were made quick, not quelled. As one who made the longest march across the desert sands, I would debase myself and quench my parch, and pray the gods beheld it good. It's my religiosity to serve a love which serves me not. For if you would look after me, my years of thirst would be forgot. Alas, they sprawl behind. Before I merely see prospect of death, though years accumulate the more. Already I have lost my breath. I don't remember if I did a short. I think I did that one as a short video. I for some reason when I went into this, I was thinking I had just put up the words as a community post, but I think I must have read that one. So I showed you the chapbook essentially for Obama, and then I read a little thing that dealt with the election of Trump. Let me read the first one, the first inaugural poem that I had done. It is actually in my book, The Soul's Refinement, which is, I think, the 3rd book in my non-fit press books. You can see what I was looking like at that time, kind of scary as usual. And this poem for President Clinton's 2nd inaugural not used. I think I omitted it when the not used part for the chapbook. I always indulged in my little sour grapes, but I think I may at this point have decided that I didn't need to do that. Well, let me see. I'm not finding it in here. Oh yeah, see, in the chapbook it doesn't say that not used. So this is a pretty short one. I forget who read the poem for Clinton's 2nd inaugural. Maya Angelou famously did the 1st inaugural of Bill Clinton. The 2nd, I can't remember. The name is on the tip of my tongue. I think, again, my poem covered what more pointedly should have been said. Of course, this poem is a monument in time because nothing like this could be said now nor would apply now under any circumstances. Father in heaven, as we face tomorrow, our nation lead to joy away from sorrow. Lead us away from strife sectarian, all men created equal, man to man. Lead us away from bigotry and hate, from pride and thinking ourselves over great. And if we stumble, Lord, yea, if we fall, let us not be defeated by it all, but rise again and fight for what is right, letting compassion all our ills requite. Lord, let us have thy mercy, as we must be merciful ourselves, and true and just. Let us receive thy blessing as we go forward into a future we don't know, steadfast and kind, in words and action gentle, not treating the least wrong as incidental. Victory's blessing, Lord, if there be war, we beg of thee. But Father, even more, we beg for our hostilities to cease, that we may find a never-ending peace. So, of course, what is the line? Let us receive thy blessing as we go forward into a future we don't know. Could not be said today. We have a very clear idea of the future that our country is moving into at this point. It is not a pretty one, obviously. Let me see. I want to show I think this was my fifth against holy war, and another case of, you can't see the words that well. It was prompted by the events of September 11th, 2001, the downing of the Twin Towers in New York. And I wrote poems arguing in favor of a peaceful response. That people had problems with that, and of course the country opted to pursue a violent response rather than a peaceful response. In fact, invading a country that had nothing to do with the downing of the towers. The act was perpetrated by citizens of Saudi Arabia and friends of the Bush family. Well, let me just read you one to let's see. Though you have been deprived, forget that life has ending, for we may see our loved ones yet, without pretending. Though we must bear our griefs and grieve a little while, from sorrow we shall find reprieve with one more mile. So it's a collection of 50 poems in that basic meter, that basic stanza. I'll read you another from it. Though me and mine have been reviled, rebuked, rejected, let's take the admonition mild and stand corrected. Insofar that we have been proud, though less than they, and leave off petty boastings loud we made today. Well, of course, we went the route of boastings, petty boastings. So that book was followed by Fascist Heart, because at that point it was clear that the country was moving into fascism. This was the first book that I put together at Lulu. So you'll find it on my page. I had trouble with the formatting. It looks okay though. So I dealt with the forthcoming fascism. This would have been written in 2002. As I say, I don't know these poems particularly. I definitely haven't looked at this since I put the book together. God, grant us peace. Let this turmoil within the heart be calmed, be stilled. Let us embroil in murderous art ourselves no longer, but so foil the foe and fiend, that from lust's solvent, soylent spoil, we will be weaned. Kind of an odd thing there. Another one. Against the fascist, spring up cells in opposition, for in the lone heart goodness dwells without partition. Then though it die or it succumb, party of one in its endeavors, never numb, conscience hath won. So this book reflects a lot that I had learned from reading Jan Karski's book, The Story of a Secret State. Of course, the Polish underground became what we would call terrorists today in their fight against Nazism, in their fight against the Germans. It's a marvelous book if you have not read The Story of a Secret State, and Karski is mentioned by name in some of these poems. The book is starting to yellow, so it's just been 10 years. So these Lulu things are not going to hold out that well. But so this was the follow-up to Against Holy War. Anything else here? More political things. Well, I think a lot. My book, Bestial Ballads, dealt a lot with the role of the artist. It dealt with the role of resistance fighters against immense power, even fascist power. And let me see, I know that I wrote one about Victor Jara, who I think about all the time. If you don't know his song, it's Te recuerdo, Amanda. Te recuerdo, Amanda, la calle mojado, caminando a la fábrica, donde trabajaba Manuel. I mean, I haven't memorized the song, but he, I don't know that, oh, is this it? No. I would like to find it. I've got something about Garcia Lorca. Oh, here it is. It's called Para encontrarse con él. So let's see. They taunted him to play his songs, despite his fingers broken. Him held there with the captive throngs, as though there were a joke in predicament in which they found themselves after the coup that put Allende in the ground. But what were they to do? He sang the song of unity before machine guns rattle, cut his sweet voice for all to see. Sad casualty of battle, there in the selfsame stadium where he had sang support. His fingers were cut off, so some eyewitnesses report. They taunted him to play and sing, then murdered Victor Jara, voice beautiful yet with a sting for those who covet power. Amidst the heavens his voice glides through hill and dale to tell how to the job Amanda strides to meet with her Manuel. I'll put a link to Victor Jara's song in the description box as well. I don't know if there's anything else in here to take. It's another collection of 50 poems. As I said to somebody, if go for one of my chapbooks, here's another one of my chapbooks. You might as well order a bunch of books from Lulu. The postage is not really worth it, to be honest with you. Let's see. Well, I'll do. There was one about moving it back to Karski a little bit, the Warsaw Ghetto. So let's see what we have here. I say moving it back. Now, Karski was not there at the uprising, but he had been snuck into the ghetto and seen conditions therein. So that's just the connection in my mind. But this is later. Taking a stand. The Warsaw Ghetto is the world, except perhaps some ranch, whilst those that keep alive, imperiled in fortitude to stanch the open wounds that freely flood a deluge in the gush of expurgations spurting blood, ubiquitous that crush. Some men are drowned, and some resist to varying degrees, by faulty thought recidivist, or brought low to their knees. They cast about to clean their eyes that are encaked in scum. Frenzied, distraught, the enemies hide where they're firing from. The bullets enter and depart, a gaping passage left, nor tissues reparations thwart the vast expansive cleft. They gurgle, guggle, and decease, whilst those around them strand. In death the soul finds its release. The living take their stand. So it's using the Warsaw Ghetto as sort of a metaphor, I think, here to anybody in a tough situation. We individually may find ourselves in difficult situations. And largely what happens will be outside of our control. Now, I mentioned that I had written a poem for Ashley Babbitt. Let's see if I can find it here. Ashley Babbitt was a woman who, with a frenzied mob, broke into the Capitol building in an effort to murder representatives such as Nancy Pelosi, and she was killed. And let me see, it was about the last thing that I had put up on this channel before going into a hiatus. Subsequently, I became a booktuber, but that was after a break. Well, I'm not finding it. I must not have used her name in a ballad suggesting fellatio. I could read that, but I don't think that would be appropriate. Ballad of the Interloping Cat. I'd like to find the one I could swear that I did for her, but I don't know. I'm just not finding it. Maybe it was not this book. Well, let me read you something from this book regardless. I'll do this one. I could read things more pertinent, but I'll just go out of the blue here. And this is called Bracknels of Suitability, a ballade. Regrettably, we live within an age of surfaces, or so quoth Lady Bracknell, whom we have witnessed query on the stage in witticisms that are said to crackle. Man's suitability wedlock to tackle, wherefore she needs to know of his estate, lest he reside in a townhouse ramshackle, income of qualities most high to rate. It may be well, if one wish to engage, to be less popinjay, more common grackle, perceptually a la mode with persiflage, homespun, but not too near the barnyard cackle. For too much knowledge will not ever track well, yet verbiage ought to be kept up to date. A short engagement, least to pose debacle, income of qualities most high to rate. An even temperament, not quick of rage, but calm in crisis, slow to raise the hackle, serves best, for matrimony is a cage, albeit bliss both spiritual and sacral. A husband, both a lackey and a jackal, to wifely virtue, if a worthy mate, to be approved within God's tabernacle, income of qualities most high to rate. A poet, Oscar Wilde or George Trakl, were best wed not to woman, but to fate. Small value in a spondee or a dactyl, income of qualities most high to rate. So that's a bit tough. I mean, what can I say? The ballad of Christian hypocrisy. I find it to be a sort of hard form to. Well, let's move from the ballade to a villanelle, and I'll read the opening to my book, The Condemnation. So this book was from 2003. I had devoted myself to trying to prevent the invasion of Iraq, which George W. Bush pushed the country into. It came out later that it was an invasion based on false premises. Of course, it was obviously a lie from the get-go. Colin Powell ruined his career giving a speech to the United Nations, and if you saw that speech, you knew instantly that he was lying throughout. And so the war came, and so I wrote this book. I don't know if it got copywritten or copyrighted before the bombs began to drop. There was an anthrax scare at the time, and so mails were not going. I believe I actually sent the form to the Library of Congress, FedEx or something like that, because I wanted the copyright date to reflect the time of the book. I thought all of that was very important back in those days. So it's the first poem, Bury This Generation, and you can see the dedication of the book, Dédié aux vrais Américains. Bury this generation in the ground, and let its names go unremembered, they that willfully assented with no sound to tyranny and terror all around. As self-indulgent, self-absorbed they play. Bury this generation in the ground. It is a people lost, thinking it found, in unconcern to pass the livelong day, that willfully assented with no sound. False words of sympathy and fear abound, yet as none stir, the future must, not may, bury this generation in the ground. Remember not the names, let not astound that such as these frittered the while away, that willfully assented with no sound. It is the just deserts, this shapeless mound that let itself be cowed into the clay. Bury this generation in the ground that willfully assented with no sound. So this is talking of a generation extant in the year 2003. I am hoping that we have some better people now, as the situation has only gotten direr and direr. So I'll show you one other book. This book, during the course of the war, I was posting poems under a pseudonym, I Am Small, just dealing with whatever happened that day in the war. And they're all dashed off real fast. It's a real hodgepodge. So I've got something like Kerry portrayed as a Dodger, the presidential candidate. What John Kerry was portrayed as though he had been a draft Dodger. I don't know these poems at all, and I don't know what would be a good one to read. You know, there was one that. Well, let me look for something in a different meter. Just it might be hard for me to read, but. We'll see what this gets us. It's called Alberto, not Gonzalez, but Gore. Alberto, not Gonzalez, but Gore. So this is a bit of different meter. We'll see what I get. Al Gore won the election, but he didn't get the job. Perhaps fortuitous, because you know he is no snob, in that he doesn't need a bunch of sycophants surrounding to keep integrity and work for public weal. Astounding. Consider other presidents, what they did afterwards. George Herbert Walker, who slipped into oil merchants' boards, so to ensure a steady flow of profits as they come. His father, Prescott, built the roads and bought petroleum. While Gore, too much the activist to crab and play the martyr, engaged in useful business, taking after Jimmy Carter. He talked about the consequence of overpopulation and startled to awakeness by his words a slumbering nation. Had he been president, the wily Wade Republicans would have harassed him endlessly, minutiae by their guns, as target, slander, and obstruct in every breaking moment. Instead, he hath bequeathed us, if God wills, a great endowment. Perhaps chance for survival while the imminent disaster accelerates at glacial speed. Now glaciers move much faster. If only men will not put off until some other season what must be done, despite that some commit a human treason, warmongering and profiteering with assaults on reason. So, of course, Al Gore early on started publicizing climate change, climate catastrophe, which we are living, which, of course, at the time, the Republican Party insisted did not exist. Here, this is just something out there. One of our booktubers, Ann Novella, has a regular feature where she titles the segment Coffee Klatch, and she gives a little explanation how coffee klatch is a tradition in various countries. Well, this is a poem from that. I don't think that there's really anything too particular. The ladies round the coffee klatch in Washington discuss the times. My lighter's out, lend me a match, love. Aren't those colors so sublime? That's the extent that morals go in Washington, but does it show amongst the menfolk's policies? Prices are high in times like these. The rabble of the lower class in Washington comprise a mass all of its own. Does this mean blacks as never seem to get the facts? So that's the kind of thing that you can expect in this. My apologies to Washington residents. Even booktubers in the area. So I've almost gone on for an hour. Let me just try to read something, close out with something that's not dealing with politics. But I just wanted to talk a little bit about politics and poetry. I have a book. You can find it at Lulu again. Critical essays. I did my best. Half of them are just from a blog I had at the time and are still up there. I am not a good essay writer. I did the best I could. Well, let me see. This is well, we'll see. This one I haven't touched this one. This book came out something like, let's see when this one, well, it was written in 1996 and it came out in 2003. So I have not looked at it since then. It's a bit longer. And then I will wrap this up. That I may not fulfill my life's chief aim, I count no loss, Lord, not a disappointment. When I have been negated in my claim, my wounds and woes dressed with a burning ointment. For what are these, my petty hopes, that I've seen sundered piecemeal, drop by aching drop, so that where once I wished that I might thrive, now only do I wish the hurt to stop. The hurt to stop, wherefore my mind doth chase delicious, unremitting, fleet phantasms that serve my higher aspects to debase, and those my lower set with fearful spasms, like as thy children when they had to face the Spanish conquerors' deep lust-filled chasms. The Indians they slew, Lord, but yet their own souls cast they to the dogs, the hounds of hell. So this must I believe, Lord, who have known thy tender mercy, though not known it well. They did it in thy name, and many time I find that I have justified misdeeds, invoking thee, declaring it no crime, to act impelled by overwhelming needs. In this I erred. Lord, from this error keep me. In this I sinned. Lord, from this sinning cleanse me. For errant ways continued errors reap me, till sinning's wages, death, shall recompense me. Lust's gleaming blade, taught unregenerate, taunts my prehensile hand, which tempts thy hate. A daughter clinging to her mother would not yield her to the devil's angry clasps, with which he slew them, laughing well and good, at which the soul's refinement heaves and gasps. Lord, were I in that kind of situation, with no external conscience, and possessing a power absolute, would deprivation lead me to deeds whose dare defies confessing? I fear it would. For man's depravity I fear runs in my veins, its muddy current, drawn on as if it were by gravity, though by that love I felt, I wish it weren't. Far better that a man should slay himself than take a frightened child to be his pelf. Are such things done? Lord, Lord, I know they are. Yes, even here today they are enacted, deep in some angry heart, beyond all care, converting life into a hell protracted. Heaven is life, or should be, Lord, if we but could allow our own selves to accept the bounties thou hast given free, not killing love because it can't be kept. Man's history's a trail of blood and tears, and here upon the summit, here we stand. Shall we strike out and cast away our fears, or cling to them like some Cortez's band? Shall we cling to our prejudice like gold, or empty-handed reach a hand to hold? Ye conquerors, away into the dust, away into the ashes heap with ye. Let all your glittering deeds decay with rust, or else be washed away into the sea. The great sea, yea, that ye once sailed o'er, let it engulf the memory of all your frigates proud, the courage that ye bore, the golden dreams for which you paid with gall, the ransacked dreams of others. Be not proud, O Europe and the children of her fame, for what ye built, industrial and loud, upon the vanquished cultures, crowned with shame. Blot out the year of 1492, with shame of our inheritance and rue. Already in a year or two there sailed the slave ships out of Africa, so flourished the trade, and since the human conscience failed so often, thus great enmity was nourished to deal in arms for men. The story's old, but yet we see it fashioned every day, to cop another's labor for your gold, with fresh enslavements for which man must pay. Ye lusty men, ye brave and lusty men, I see you on the corner even now, engaged in commerce, 5 will get you 10, and here's Beelzebub to show you how. In competition's laws, we all agree, it's dog eat dog, but privately, not me. I'll read the next one, since it goes kind of in similar theme. Some of these poems, I did little bits of quoted material, and it was such a bear getting the rights. Brian at Bookish has talked about how hard it is to nail down these rights. You have to contact people, you have to pay fees, and so I never did it again with subsequent books. And this one, it's in 4 stanzas, and the second one has a kind of an odd jump to it, and it was written that way intentionally, but it reminds you of sort of that ode of Keats where the pages were mixed up and you don't know which order they're in, and there's kind of some uncomfortable transitions. So, but it was exactly as the muse intended it. So I will start with the quotation. So consequently, these first sowers of destruction are responsible for the infamous lie which spread throughout the world that harmed the cause of multitudes of men. Well, you know, it's been an hour. I'm not going to read that poem. That was Bartolome de las Casas. That's in the book Soul's Refinement. It's one you'll have to get from Amazon or some used vendor online. Thank you very much. We'll see how this goes when I put it out there. Maybe another day I will get to that. Thank you.